We lost in like a winner to state, loser out 2 years in a row, reverse sweep style, where like my team just imploded and fell apart. And I had to look at myself as a coach and be like, this is not my athlete's fault. Like
Mhm.
I'm seriously underserving them in this area.
Coach Bree, welcome to a Champions podcast.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
So, just maybe tell people a little bit about your background. Oh, and by the way, I also heard that you just won like your fourth state championship as a volleyball coach.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, my background started in athletics, obviously, as a young age, and played a lot of sports growing up. But volleyball was kind of my main passion. And as an athlete, I struggled with what I come to now understand as very normal parts of being an athlete, like the pressure, the nerves, the comparison, like all those things that all athletes deal with. But as a talented athlete, and I was highly recruited in my at my high school years. I thought I was the only one. I was like, I'm struggling with all this. No one's really talking about it. And I felt like I was letting people down all the time. And so I actually ended up quitting volleyball after my senior season of high school and just kind of turned everything down and disappointed a bunch of people and went off to go to college to focus on my academics
Hmm.
and quickly realized that I wasn't burned out. It wasn't volleyball that I didn't like. I went to an amazing college. I know that you and I are both from the Pacific Northwest. So I went to Western Washington
Hmm.
University and I went to every one of their games my freshman year. They made it to the national championship. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I just like missed out on my future here. And so I reached out to the coach and asked her, like, hey, is there any opportunity? I told her my story and she was like, yeah, come try it.
Hmm.
Come to come to a practice after they came off their national championship. I was like, wow, okay, here we are.
Hmm.
And so I went and practiced with the team and I'm like, at least I tried. Come to find out, she pulled me into her office a couple days later and was like, we want to offer you a walk-on spot on this
Yeah.
team. And I was like,
Yeah.
walk-on? I mean, I don't care if I'm not gonna, I'll pay to be a part of this
Yeah.
program. And so that kind of started the journey of recognizing that there's actually a way to train some of these mental skills. My coach was just phenomenal in the way that she coached the sport, but also coached the holistic view of the athlete. Like she gave us
Hmm.
resources. I got super interested in sports psychology, started studying some of that, and realized like, hey, this is actually normal. These are normal things that all athletes go through. So by the time I was a senior, I was a full ride scholarship athlete. I was starting. I was loving volleyball. And that quickly like propelled me into a career of teaching and coaching because I was
Hmm.
like so passionate about it. And so
Hmm.
got into coaching and found out about, actually very early on that they don't give you the handbook when it comes to like, here's how you teach these mental skills to athletes. Here's how you develop a winning culture. Here's how you deal with parents. I was like 22 years old taking over a program as a head coach and like totally drowning. And it was like probably farther along into my coaching career than it should have been. But I had two talented teams back to back. Like it was, took over a program that had won state or runner up at state. This was like 10 years ago at this time. And we lost in like a winner to state, loser out 2 years in a row, reverse sweep style, where like my team just imploded and fell apart. And I had to look at myself as a coach and be like, this is not my athlete's fault. Like this
Hmm.
is I'm seriously underserving them in this area. So I went back, become certified as a mental performance coach through Lindsay Wilson
Hmm.
and started a business. Teaching these skills to athletes. We've had at this point 4,000 athletes come through our online program, the Elite Mental Game. And we actually just today officially expanded our company to serve coaches. So we also have a coach program as well. So
Hmm.
that's my
Oh,
story.
man. Well, I mean, it's what a story. Like, how did I mean, two things that pop up. Like, number one, how important it is for coaches to normalize, right? And, and parents normalize that, hey, if you feel stress, anxiety, fear, whatever, like, it's normal. Like, it means that you care. Like, if you didn't care, you wouldn't
Yeah.
feel any of those things. But because you care,
Mhm.
that's normal. So there's nothing wrong with you. It's just this is what everyone else feels. And then number two, I just think like you're such a young coach to have that self-awareness to be like, it's not them, it's me. Right. And I
Yeah.
think most coaches, and I would include myself, took a lot longer to sort of say, how much of this is on me, especially in these big high pressure moments, knockout games, playoff games, how much of this is on me
Mhm.
so that I can change instead of year after year complaining about, oh, if these kids were just mentally tougher. So,
Mhm.
congrats on the self-awareness piece. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. I guess my question is, what changed about you when you got certified that all of a sudden you were able to help your team better, coach your team better?
Mhm. Yeah. A lot changed. I was so excited because I was like, oh, these are actual like skills that I could be teaching them. So my team was my guinea pigs.
Yeah.
As I was going through the certification, it was during the summer, and I was like, okay, girls, we're gonna do something that's weird. We're gonna visualize and we're
Yeah.
going to talk like it's not just visualization that we do, but we're also going to like look at our self-talk. We're going to do these other like and thankfully, I had built a rapport with my athletes where they trusted me, but there's a lot of skepticism at first. They were
Mhm.
like, I don't know. So I mean, your question was what changed in me, and that was that like I have to be doing more than just coaching the X's and the O's. And we hear that a lot as coaches. It's like it's beyond the X's and O's. But truly, I was like, yeah, I can coach volleyball. Like they have numerous resources on how to do that. But like I have to be able to coach them in a way where they can emotionally regulate when they are feeling pressure. And, they can deal with negative self-talk. They can even become aware of their self-talk and what they're telling themselves and how that impacts their performance.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it started with that and that, like, athletes need this. And while there was some skepticism at first, like they quickly caught on to like, okay, this actually is working. And I was doing a lot of surveys of like, how are you feeling about this? Is this impacting your performance? And the results were clear. They were like, this is helping me a lot. Like this 3 minutes before practice, where we do our 3-2-1 brave is what we call it, our daily mindset routine. It totally helps me stay focused in practice. I now have like skills to use. We've been in a lot of high pressure situations, from that point on, multiple championship games, multiple semifinal, final games, like loser out, winner,
Yeah.
like all of it. And, I consistently hear back from my athletes, like I was going back to my snapback routine. I was saying my reset word, I was doing my breath, and it gives them anchors because otherwise we go into fight or flight, our brain thinks like something is wrong, and then we just kind of fall to the level of our training. And in that area, we had no training. So it was just like
Yeah.
this panic mode.
I mean, it's
So,
such a that I'm glad you said that last piece. Like, I don't think there's any coach that doesn't agree with that. I don't know if that's a Navy SEAL mantra or whatever, but you don't rise to
right.
this, you fall to the level of your training. And everyone is
Mhm.
very intentional about fitness training and tactical and all the technical stuff. But on game day, especially the more the game means, right? A knockout game, a semifinal, a final, whatever. It's you don't, you know, you don't lose 13 years of technical training, or you don't like that doesn't go um from a physiological standpoint unless it goes here first, right? And the pressure is so
Mhm.
much that all of a sudden you can't hit a ball, you can't relax, you can't breathe, whatever the sport. And so yeah, you fall to the level of your training, and if you're not training in those areas, you're in the biggest moments, the team that is probably going to outperform you.
Yeah. And we saw that. I mean, this last run, so the state championship we just won this past fall, I'll be honest, and like if any of my players listen to this, I've been open about it. They would all agree with me. They'd be like, we weren't actually sure we were going to make it to state this year, let alone win state.
Yeah,
We
interesting.
had one returner. It was like, yeah, the first year we won it, it was like, okay, this was kind of surprising. Also, like pretty awesome. Second 2 years, like we had very talented players. We did this year too, but we only had one returner.
Mhm.
And so you look at your roster and you're like, well, we'll see what we can do. And every single day it was that training, that visualization, the breath work, all of those things that you don't actually see it in the day to day very much until you get into these pressure situations. And in that state championship match, like even the like that we got there was pretty phenomenal. But getting into that match, we were down championship point. We were playing this team who you look across the net, they're 6'5", 6'3", 6'1". They're going D1,
Mhm.
senior heavy lineup. They haven't won state in 36 years. We were in the fourth set. This is a volleyball. Those of you that know
Yeah.
volleyball, they had championship points. So that means they had the ball. They were serving.
Yeah,
If they
1
get this
point.
point, they win state and make history for their
Yeah.
school. The whole thing. All their fans were on their feet. Called timeout right before, and we did our reset word, we did our breath. And we're like, hey, we're just gonna focus on passing this ball. Here we go.
Mhm.
Okay, I believe in you. I believe in you. You got, and go out, pass the ball. We get that point. We win the point. So now it's like
Yeah.
we're tied up.
Mhm.
Now they need 2 points to win
Yeah.
state, and we need 2 points to stay alive.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
my sophomore player, no state experience, first year on varsity, goes back to serve, and I'm like, okay, here
Yeah.
we go. I was like, she looks like she has ice in her veins. Okay, she
Yeah.
goes serves the other team, and like I said, they're star hitters. Are going D1. They're seniors. This is their last hurrah. Hit the ball in the net. And I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
okay. Like you don't see that very often from a player like that. Okay. We win that point. Sophomore serving again. She goes, serves. They free ball the ball into net, which is like, a free ball is a really easy ball, really easy
Yeah.
play that they just kind of fell apart. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, we just won that set. We just
Yeah.
took that away. And it was just this big, and then we won the fifth set because it was like, okay, we had just kind of stolen that momentum.
Momentum
But
swung. Yeah.
that's where I was like, yeah, I was like, that is just where it is so clear as day.
Yeah.
When a team that is like we were both physically talented teams, and I would argue that they were a little bit more talented than us. Um, but when it came down to it, it was who can handle that pressure better, who had trained it.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say maybe I would redefine the word talent. Like maybe they
Hmm.
had more ability than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talent
Hmm.
is the combination of ability, what you can see, and then all these internal things, which you guys had repped all year long. And that's the thing, right? You can't just in the playoffs go, all right, now we're going to be mentally like every day. If you're
Yeah.
doing, you called it like your 3-2-1 and your snapbacks and your reset
Mhm.
words, it's just normal. So it's not like you get to the state tournament and say, okay, now the games matter and we're going to add all this extra stuff in. It's like now the games matter and you're ready because
Mhm.
you've been doing everything that it takes to win state all year long. And it's
Yeah.
so important that just like they get reps in setting a ball or digging a
Mhm.
ball, they're getting reps in reset words there. So it's not like the timeout a championship point. You're like, all right, everyone, reset word for the first time. Like, no, they've done a
Yeah.
thousand of them this season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where you see it. Like I can see, or maybe I would be the coach that'd be like, well, of course you won state because you had that girl that was really good, or you had that team that was good. And I'm like, well, that's where it matters the most is that, because they're going to be in the most pressure filled situations. We had a target on our back, like
Yeah.
that's where they need it the most. And when you get to that level, everybody's good. So,
Yeah. And then, I think at the end of the season, if you lost, because let's face it, we all have an outcome bias, right? That girl in that
oh,
moment
yeah.
might have hit a phenomenal serve and you lost. At least you can
Oh,
also
yeah.
say, you know what? I didn't leave anything on the table. Like
Hmm.
we gave everything we could and we got it to 4 sets in the state final in a year that we weren't sure we'd even make it to the playoffs. That was a
Yeah.
good year, right? But it's, so many coaches get to that moment and are like, did I really, did I really maximize every single opportunity to, to give my team the opportunity to win? And
Hmm.
so this is where I think and it's gotten better, right? More and more people understand the importance of these mental skills and things like that. But I think some still treat them as like a one-time thing. All right, well, we did those back in August, so now they're done. Instead of no, it's every day, right?
Yeah, or like a guest speaker. They'll have somebody come in and like kind of do a workshop, and they'll be like, "Well, okay, that was great. Where my team's like feeling good this week," and then there's no like sustainability to it. And that's like I get asked to speak a lot to teams, and we do workshops, but I'm honest with the coaches. I'm like, this is not like a thing that's going to solve everything in your team. Like this needs to be a repeatable, like ingrained into your culture.
Yeah. Yeah, like here's the tool. So can we just break down like the three tools you mentioned right there? Reset
Mhm.
word. Tell people what a reset word is, how you might come up with it, and how you would use it.
Yeah, it's one of the most simple things, and I'm sure anyone that's familiar with a little bit of sports psychology, like in this area, is familiar with this. But it's
Yeah.
basically a failure recovery system. We call ours the snapback routine, and it's a way for athletes to respond to the moments where they're either feeling like bumped out of their zone, so or out of the flow state where athletes, we want them to recognize that flow state is where you should be, and it's where you're not really thinking, you're just playing on a traffic light. Those of you that have maybe read the inner game of tennis,
Mhm.
that's it's kind of a familiar visual where it's like green is flow state, yellow is like maybe something happened, like I made a mistake, ref made a call, teammate did something, coach yelled at me, whatever, and I'm feeling a little bit like bumped out of the flow. And then red is really where most athletes go when they don't have this skill. That's like they're dysregulated, they're spiraling. One mistake turns into two, three, four. As a coach, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to pull them off the court, or like I'm playing with my like third string, and you're spending so much energy trying to like get their head back in the game and like tell them to shake it. And it's just like so much emotional exhaustion to try and get them back, and they might not ever come back until like the next game. And so most athletes who don't have the skill of resetting go from red to green or green to red, and it's like tough to get them back. We teach athletes what it feels like, that body awareness of like, okay, you are now moving into yellow. Use your snapback routine to bring you back to green. So it's a combination of a breath to engage their parasympathetic nervous system, because that's the opposite of the fight or flight. It kind of like helps them reset. A reset word that is found through a strategic method, that is based on how they want to feel in that moment. So we actually like workshop this ahead of time to decide like what's your best playing moment when you are playing your best, how are you feeling, what's a word that kind of describes that. And then we even like put them through scenarios of like,
Mhm.
okay, here's the scenario that you're most likely going to become dysregulated in. What word would kind of would bring you back to how you want to feel. And then
Yeah.
on their exhale, they're doing a reset signal. So some sort of grounding signal to bring them back in the present moment. For volleyball, we've got 15 seconds between serves. And so that's how long our athletes have to get back in the zone. So it's enough time to like, press their fingers together, tighten a pony, like adjust a
Right.
sock.
Smack your
For
thighs, something,
yeah, yeah,
anything.
something like that. For basketball players, like unless there's a timeout, like we've got to be moving and we got to get fast. So maybe it's just a breath and a reset word.
Mhm.
Um, depending, like for golfers, they've got a lot of time, depending on how far. Well, for me, I don't have a lot of time. Depending on how far you hit the ball.
Yeah.
Um, but we teach you, and we actually like when we first introduced this, we like create a station in our gym where like they are practicing this every water break. They're doing their snapback routine. They're visualizing it. Like it's scaffolded a lot in the
Yeah.
beginning to become something that they're not using in a championship game for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. And that then you have that sophomore, in the big pressure moment, right? The serve for
Yeah.
us of like, okay, at least she's as mentally ready as she can be in this moment to hit a good serve or whatever. I th- what I mean, I think this is so important, and it's a very simple concept, and it's not used enough. Um, to just get people, and I like this idea of like pick a word that describes you as you're at your best, right? Aggressive,
Yeah.
courageous, free,
Hmm.
right? Fun loving, whatever, just whatever it is, like, come on, fun loving. Let's go. And back to, you know, back to your best state, if you will. Talk about what's
Hmm.
the 3-2-1 thing.
Yeah, the 3-2-1 Brave is our daily mindset routine. So this is something that we do every day. It's part of our pre-practice routine that we do in our program. And the three stands for three affirmations. And they're not just the affirmations where you look at yourself and you're like, I'm smart, I'm strong, everybody loves me, like that whole thing. It's not that. Kind of similar to the reset word. They are finding these based on like it's built into kind of our preseason goal setting, but not just like goals as you would normally think of them. It's like, what type of athlete do you want to, when you think about yourself at the end of this season, what do you want
Right,
your coach to be saying about you at the banquet? Like,
right,
those type of things. And so we teach athletes how to turn those into affirmations so that they are present tense, rooted in the here and now, so that they can create a visualization on like what this actually looks like in practice. So an example might be, and I mean, some of them are outcome goals around like, I am a first team all league player. Some athletes are like capable and really want that. And but
hmm,
then we break it down to like, okay, that's great, but what is that? What does a first team all league player do in practice every day? Like, what does that look like?
right.
So we have them like actually come up with 10 um specific actions that this looks like so that they can be visualizing those.
Or
And then
behaviors. I like the
some are,
word. I like the word behaviors. Like, what are the behaviors that I
yes,
have to do
behaviors.
every day? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not just this like thing out there. And then some are like, I'm a smart, aggressive defender. And so again, we have them come up with what are the behaviors of that? What does that look like?
Yeah.
So they write down those three things every day. Two, we give them 2 minutes of journaling. So I know if you for me, I'm always a little resistant to journaling because I'm like, oh, it just takes like 2 minutes, but 2 minutes is not that long. We prompt them a little bit based on kind of what's going on in the season. And it just is a really good way for just to get things out. One stands for one piece of gratitude. There's a lot of research connecting gratitude and like finding the good, hunting the good that's happening, and how that informs their experience at practice and just in life. And then we have another one that's one piece of evidence that one of your affirmations is coming true. So same concept. It's like where, like what we focus on expands. So we are training athletes' brains to focus on what's happening in their environment to really create what they want to have happen. So they look at maybe, one of their three affirmations and it's like, I'm a fast, aggressive defender. Oh, what's the evidence that that's happening? That's coming true for me. It's like, well, practice yesterday, I laid out for a ball I didn't think I could get and I got it. And
Yeah.
so they're just always collecting evidence.
Yeah.
And then the brave is just, it's a visualization that we do. It's like 2 minutes long where they're just seeing these things and practicing their reset word and their breath. And so that whole process takes about 5 minutes at the beginning of practice. Um, and so, yeah, that's how we train, just on the daily, their
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah. And like you said, it's 5 minutes, right? And this is where I think a lot of
Mhm.
coaches are like, this is all great. I don't have time for this. And I mean,
Yeah.
I always say to coaches, like, let me observe your practice. Like, I
Mhm.
guarantee you I can find 5 minutes. And like one of the things when I used to do work for US soccer, helping, mentoring coaches through licenses. And the first thing I would always do is I would start a stopwatch every time the ball wasn't rolling in soccer,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So when the coach was talking, when players were getting water, when the coach was explaining a drill, when players were walking over. So as soon as the ball stopped rolling, I started my watch. And inevitably, and so then I would always say to the coach after the practice, you just had 90 minutes. How much time was the ball not rolling? And the typical answer was like 15 to 20. And the typical reality was 45 minutes. So
Oh,
half of
wow.
practice, the ball wasn't rolling. And it's like, okay, how can I teach you to have a more efficient water break? Right. So I'm like, I can
Mhm.
pretty much go to any coach anywhere in any sport and find you 5 minutes to do this. Right.
Mhm.
And just do it every day and find 5 minutes, and then practice is more focused and you're not explaining and people are tuned in because it's sort of this signal that okay, now practice has started, and it all starts the same way. You
Yeah,
do that before
exactly.
games too, like a 3-2-1 before
Yeah.
games? Yeah.
We do. We sometimes mix it up with specific pregame visualizations that we
Mhm.
do. So it's either 3, 2, 1 Brave, or we're like literally visualizing the game, or sometimes the visualizations are a little bit more like metaphorical,
Mhm.
to kind of like get more into their subconscious.
You
But
ever let your like,
yeah,
your coach in high school varsity, you ever let them sort of run these things too?
yeah, that's a great question. I do. I let them run some of the 3, 2, 1 Brave. Once they kind of get the hang of it, I lead the visualization, so I say them out loud. I don't
Mhm.
know if my players would want to do that,
Yeah.
but they also have them all downloaded to their phone, so they can play them over the speaker. So I can be in the locker room even when I'm not there. And we have a program for coaches where I know a lot of coaches are like, I like this, but like I'm gonna sound like such an idiot trying to do these visualizations.
Yeah.
And I was like that at first too. I'm like, I just got to
Yeah.
fake it till I make it.
Yeah.
It does get easier, but we tell coaches like there's three ways you can do it. You could read the script yourself if you want to do it that way.
Yeah.
You can play them for your team. Okay, you have access to all the files, or your athletes can have them downloaded to their phones and they can just put in their like put on their headphones and listen to it themselves.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Like there's no you're doing a great job taking away all the excuses, of like
Yeah, they were all my excuses. So I'm like,
well,
I'm
there
sure
you
other
go.
coaches
I
thought this
mean,
too.
again, there's that self-awareness piece again. All right, so
Yeah.
this is how you do this. Now, I want to talk about before we get into a few extra pieces, um, the environmental piece. And I don't know if you've seen there's a brand new book out just a week, Steve Magnus. It's called Win the Inner Game. I don't know if you've seen it yet.
Yeah.
Just came out.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but I follow him and love his work.
Yeah, and it's really good. And I was kind of shocked how much he spends in there, especially early on the youth sports environment. And what he
Mhm.
talks about is a couple of things, but the main gist of it is how much the parents shape the environment. And when the parents, and he had a term, it wasn't his term, but I had never heard this before. It was great. He called it, you know, today's parents have gone from helicopter parents who are not so hard to work with to, he called them jackhammer parents, which are like noisy, destructive, and driven and fueled by fear. and
Ah,
and and I thought that was really interesting. And so if the parents are noisy, destructive, and fueled by fear, then the athletes are fueled by fear.
yeah,
And it's really hard to do this because everything that you're doing in your 2 hour practice can get undone on the car ride home or sitting around the
yeah.
dinner table that night. And so I know in your work, getting parents on board, or at least moms on board, is really, really important, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'm I'm very familiar with I haven't heard the jackhammer like term yet, but very familiar with kind of how this works because we work
Yeah.
with so many parents. And yeah, we market to moms on like the main part of our business, but really we work with parents. Once they're inside the program
Yeah.
with us, it's like we got to be on the same page.
Yeah.
But it's so important. We tell parents you have two things that are 100% in your control. You shape the environment and you provide the opportunities.
Hmm.
And I love that he pinpointed it's driven by fear because when we work with parents and we, like I said, have thousands of parents coming in and doing our free training and asking us questions, a lot of it is not about the sport itself.
Hmm.
It is about I'm seeing my daughter lack or my athlete lack confidence in this area, and I'm worried about how this is manifesting itself in her academics, in her relationships. Is she going to advocate for herself? Is she going to get passed up later down the road? Is she going to get taken advantage of? And
Hmm.
so a lot of this is this fear, and that's why I empathize so much with it. And like we're parents too because you
Yeah.
see your whole world out there, and it's while it comes out as like yeah we want them to be high performing, and they're not doing or performing how we know they can. It goes so much deeper than that. It's like how is this going to impact her life or their life?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, and I think, again, that fear thing comes from a good place. It comes
Yeah.
out of, "I love my daughter, I love my son, and I just don't want them to miss out on any opportunities that maybe I missed, or
Yeah.
that they have the potential to accomplish." But then it sometimes just gets driven to the point of, the parents take full ownership of the experience, and it's their
Mhm.
experience and it's not the kid's experience. And that environment is so crucial. And so yeah, like, I, as a parent, and I've had my kids are both, I can say, done with youth sports now, which is wonderful. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're one's in college, one's
Positives.
a senior in high school, and they're both
Yeah.
very athletic and doing their stuff, but they're
Mm.
not in club teams anymore, and it's actually been really refreshing and nice. Um,
Yeah.
but I still see it and hear the fear, and like you, I go and give talks, and just so many people
Mhm.
are scared, and just that fear makes them very unrealistic about their child's ability and also their child's motivation. Like, to be a college athlete is really, really hard. And if your kid is not super motivated to go, like, what are they doing outside of practice? Because
Mhm.
if all they're doing is practice, they don't really have the intrinsic motivation to play at the next level. That's just something that you want for them. Do you see that a lot
Yeah.
as well?
I do. Yeah, I see it more on what's interesting, like in my program, my girls that are right in front of me that I coach at the high school that I coach. I think a lot of the parents are familiar with my work. And so a lot of them are like using the resources. They all have access to the program. All the parents have access to the parent side. And so a lot of them are they're doing like they're aware they're doing the work and they're amazing. But I see it a lot like with the parents that are coming in and I see it in my side like my kids are just starting the sport so I'm
Yeah.
literally on the other end of the spectrum as you. So
Yeah.
I'm like I don't know what I don't know in many ways and
Yeah.
but I've had to really check myself too like even in the little things like I want my daughter to play the sports that I played because I had such a phenomenal experience. But like
Mhm.
she doesn't want anything to do with them right now. And I
Yeah.
had to be like, oh wow, okay, well, all right, this is her journey. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
and so taking a step back, but Yeah, I do see some of this unreal, like, of course I have parent stories. I've been a coach for 14 years. Of course I've got my little folio of parent stories. And now that I am one, I'm like, okay, I get it.
Get
Like,
it?
I
Yeah.
understand. But yeah, some of this unrealistic, like, not just assessment of their talent, but like kind of tunnel vision around, like, it's just focusing on like their own athlete and their own experience and not kind of like the whole team. But honestly, now that I'm a parent and like my kids are in sports, I'm like, I do get it. I know how
No.
hard it
Yeah,
is.
and there's nothing like there's nothing wrong with that. Like you get
Yeah.
it, and it's really hard to watch
Mhm.
your DNA perform in front
Yeah.
of you and not do well or not be focused.
Mhm.
And then I think, maybe you're superhuman compared to me. I think it's also very hard when you do what you do and I do what I do, and it almost adds extra pressure on your kids, um, to, well, if you know what it means to be an elite competitor, then why isn't your kid on that path? And it's
Right.
sort of that, like, the ability to take a deep breath and go, because they're the one who gets to choose the path, not me.
Mhm.
Right? Like my
Yeah.
kids, right, had mom and dad who were Division 1 athletes. All right.
Mhm.
But if they don't, it was obvious that they liked stuff but didn't love it. And
Mhm.
so, like, I had to let go of, oh, well, I hope my kids follow my path, even though maybe they have the genetics and they could do it,
Mhm.
because it's not my decision.
Yeah.
Because you have to give up a lot to do it. And I can completely
Mhm.
understand why a kid wouldn't want to give all that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, okay, actually did like the whole club scene like is actually not something I totally want to be a part of anyway. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
one of the things that's been helpful for me as a coach, kind of like putting on the coach hat, and I hate to say the word managing parents because it's not that. Like,
No.
I've learned, I mean, when I first became a coach, I see it now as like so insecure. Um, like scared of parents. And so I
Yeah.
really had this like, you can't talk to me about anything. Like, you got to deal with your own kid. Like, I kind of like created this space and this distance like that really wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
And so, like, as along with creating more of a relationship and kind of like we're on the same team, like we have some things that we do in the preseason and all of that to like help with some of that. And honestly, I don't know if you're familiar with JP Nurbin and
Yeah. Yeah.
his work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we've done some partnerships together, and he actually has some resources inside our coach program. But
Mm.
a lot of his like parent like resources for coaches are super helpful. But one of the things is so stinking simple, but like it has really changed some things in this whole dynamic, and that is like being very clear about the roles. This is one part of it. Like, be very
Mhm.
clear about the roles that you give your athletes in your program. Everybody has a role. Everybody knows what their role is and what's expected of them, and their plan for improvement. But then also telling your kids' parent what their role is, because you cannot count on them to do it. And
Mhm.
so we have these like defined meetings that I share with the parents. Like, this is what it looks like. We're going to have this meeting with your athlete, player development plan, and we have biweekly check-ins. And I share like the document with their parent and say like, this is what their role is, this is how much playing time is associated with it, this is what we expect, this is the path that we see for them. And parents come back and they're like, thank you. Like, this is, we're on the same page now. Because as much as we like hope that the kid would share that information, like they forget pieces, or they don't share it, and then they don't know why. Like,
Well,
I don't
you'll
know
have a
why.
teenager one day and you'll realize that
Uh,
teenagers shared nothing. So
yeah,
that
yeah.
the assumption that kids are going to share this with parents, it doesn't
Mhm.
happen. The assumption should be that it won't be shared
Yeah.
and not the other way around. And that goes for every player meeting you have, especially around difficult situations like playing time or
Mhm.
role on the team or whatever it is. Assume that it's not going to get there and then find a way, like you have, to communicate it. It's absolutely
Yeah.
critical. And because then the parents know, hey, you see my kid, you're having a conversation, your version of the conversation is nothing like my kid's version of the conversation. So either I'm going to follow up with you to find out exactly what was said, or I'm going to talk to my kid about, hey, your coach gave me this. Is this actually what you talked about? Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Gosh, I know. It is so simple, but yeah, I think that's the key mindset shift too, is like assume that they're not going to share. And the other thing,
Assume.
like
Yeah.
my kid is one of mine is 7, and she gets these little like things from her coach when she just does this little like soccer.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but anyways, it's these little like updates. Like Charlie this week was, she's doing a great job trapping the ball, and
Mhm.
she's still working on her like outside foot. And I'm like, I love these. You
Yeah.
like parents just love any little tidbit that a
Yeah.
coach is seeing their kid. And so, although, it is another thing that we add to our coaches list, but it's a low lift thing that makes such a big difference when it comes to this like parent dynamic, because it's just showing like I see your kid, especially for those role players, that just feels like I don't
Yeah.
know if if
And it
coach is
can't,
even noticing her.
like you said, it can be 2 or 3 sentences, and as
Hmm.
technology has evolved, it's very easy to do that through these apps and registration systems that actually will also keep it for you, so you can see, "Oh, I gave feedback all these different times." And some of it,
Yeah.
like, you can show that, you sent it and the parent never bothered to open it, so when they're all upset at the end, you'd be like, "Well, I sent this 5 times, you didn't open any of
Yeah.
them, so I don't know what else to do." But that,
Hmm.
again, it says to a parent, coach sees my kid. They're giving a little bit. And I always say to coaches, like, think about the opposite and think about school. Like, if your kid was struggling in math in school and you couldn't find out why, the coach wouldn't talk to you, and
Yeah.
the math tests were all coming back with F's, aka I go to the game and my kid doesn't play, right? I need some feedback of how can I help? I need to get a math tutor, need to do extra practice, whatever that is. And I think being a parent helps the, like, I've never met a coach who has ever said to me, becoming a parent made me a worse coach. They all say it made
Agree.
me a better coach, because I understood
Hmm.
trust, and I understood for the first time how much parents love their kids and want the best for their kids. And it just made me take a breath of, like, okay, like, I get it, right? I realize what love really is now, and I got to love these kids just like I love my own kids. And I think
Yeah.
that's a big shift.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Except for I do feel like I became more disorganized as a coach. No.
You have
I'm
less
like, I
time.
do feel like I'm being pulled in a lot of different directions out. Like it was easier being a coach without kids, for sure, from the time perspective, but
Yeah.
way more of a more effective coach with the
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember before I had kids and people would be like, "Yeah, you don't have kids, you'll get it someday," right? And
Yeah.
the ego would get in the way of that or whatever, but, like, and then when my kids were little, people would be I remember one mom who I loved and have remained friends with, and, her daughter was a great Pac-12 player and everything like
Mhm.
that, and a pro, and she goes, I remember one time talking about, she goes, "Yeah, small kids, small problems, big kids, big problems." And it was just like, I
I've
learned
been
that
hearing
as
that a
well.
lot.
Yeah,
Hearing that a lot lately, and I'm like,
ex
oh, okay, I'll take these small problems.
exactly. So,
Mhm.
this is awesome. So you engage in your, and what I love about what you do as well is you're out here and you're teaching thousands of people, but then you're on the ground coaching a team, putting it into practice, right?
Mhm.
So for any of the coaches listening here, who are going, "This all sounds great, but I'm afraid my kids won't like it or screw it up." I gotta imagine that you've tried to introduce things and gone, that didn't go so well as well.
Yeah.
So do you have any of those stories or ideas? Because I know I do that all the time, and then I just pull the kids in, I'm like, "Yep, sorry, that didn't work. It was worth a shot. Won't do that again."
Oh yeah. I mean, a couple of things. First, I think it's important. I hope the coaches that are listening that you realize that I am in it. I am like in the trenches with you. I've got kids. I'm a wife. Like I've got all the things. So sometimes, I mean, I was a teacher for several years, and I would always bother me when we would have like workshops and people come in who would like teach us like teaching methodologies, and I was like, when was the last time you were in the classroom?
Yeah.
And they were like, 20 years. And I'm like, what,
Yeah.
can you act like, I don't know. I'm not sure that you actually know what it's like.
You
And
said the
so,
word textbook. We don't have textbooks.
yeah, yeah. And so, yes, I am iterating and like bringing in mental training, working on your culture, like it's 100% worth it. It's what you should do as a coach, but it's not like the magic bullet and you're not going to have any issues anymore. You're not going to ever lose again. Like this is there, it's still going to happen, but now you have some skills that your athletes also have that they can like come back from that and they can manage it and all the things. But yeah, I've had many things that just didn't quite go well. I will say like the visualization at first, I think was rocky. Like,
Yeah.
I had kids that were like just you could tell not paying attention. And that's also because of but just the nature of like everything being so instant gratification and like getting kids
Mhm.
to actually focus, like their brains I know I'm not going down the path of like kids these days. And like I am,
Yeah.
I love Betsy Butterick's work too around like the Gen Z and all of
Mhm.
that. And um we're not doing that, but like studies and research is showing that their brains are wired differently because of the technology that they have access to so early. And so getting them to focus was tough. And it took me being like, okay, we can't just like sit here for this long and like
Yeah,
expect
like
them
start
to pay
small.
attention. Yeah, yeah, like
Yeah.
starting very small, being okay also with those athletes that like they aren't buying in. That was more for me as a coach. I would always we're so used to like focusing on the negative, and I'm like, that one girl in the back is always having her eyes open, and I can tell
Yeah.
she's not paying attention. And I like key in on her, and I'm like, well, what about like the 30 other girls that are like in
Mhm.
it and doing it? So I'm like, okay, I just got to shift my focus there. But yeah, I would say the visualizations at first like took that was sort of a learning curve. Gosh, I'm blanking on like other specific things that I, I know that there's a lot, but
Yeah,
I would say
there's a lot.
visualization
And I
first.
just want people, I only bring that up to just say when you introduce new things, they're not all going
Mhm.
to work, or it's not,
Yeah.
it's not going to work exactly how it reads on the paper, but maybe you can find something like, you know what, we're not doing a 3-minute visualization. We're doing a 30-second visualization, and we're going to
Yeah. Oh yeah.
introduce it that way. And and I think as a coach as well, yeah, not don't take offense to the kids who aren't getting it. Like be
Hmm.
excited about the kids who are and know that you're them. I think it's just like, you give talks, I give talks. Every single room that I give a talk, there's someone sitting there with their arms crossed and they're just pissed off to be there. You
Yeah.
keep looking at them, that just brings you down. Like I look for
Hmm.
the people in the different parts of the crowd who are like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I take great pleasure when this person at the end goes from this to this to this. And then
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I get it now. Or you just see they
Yeah.
had an aha moment of like, maybe there was something I could learn today. And so
Hmm.
those postural shifts, I think, are really, so again, don't think that it's going to be perfect. It's going to be messy, just like it's supposed to be. That's normal too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right. All right. Topic here because I know, given the time of the year it is right now, especially in high school sports, a lot of sports are going into playoff season. So we've kind of touched
Hmm.
on it, but w- how can coaches best prepare their teams for, you know, losing one and done? How do you turn it?
Hmm.
Jerry and I always say, how do you turn one and done into dance in advance? you know? So what are some ideas that a coach could start in practice today?
Yeah. It brings up a lot of just feelings, postseason for coaches and also for the players. And so one of the first things that we do as we head into postseason is like really simple, just get it all out. Like, you're thinking it. Like,
Yeah.
what if we lose? And sometimes we are afraid to say those things or verbalize them or write it down because we're like, well, is it going to happen if I do that? But like,
Yeah.
it's actually the opposite. We actually like get those things out of the back of our heads. Like, what are you worried about when it comes to postseason? And a lot of for my girls, it was like, I don't want to let like our community down. I don't want to let, the river pride that we have. And like, what if I don't play my best? Like, it's just all of these things. And it's like, when you can name it, Brene Brown says, name it to tame it. And when you can shed a light on it, then it stops growing. We can like actually uh, deal with it.
Mhm.
And then that's really what informs that like our kind of our mantra for postseason. So we get all these
Mhm.
things out. We change to like, well, what if the bad things happen? Yeah, we're gonna get all that out. But what if the opposite happens? And we start to focus on that, and then we develop like a new postseason mantra for our team,
Mhm.
based on like how we want to go about postseason.
Mhm.
And the analogy I always give the girls is the one that my coach gave me when it came to like these bigger moments and bigger plays, is that it's just another turkey dinner.
Mhm.
um and I don't know if she made that up or if this is a common thing, but it's what I've been saying every year now. But the whole thing behind it is that, like, on every day of the year, you can have turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, dinner rolls, like all the things. But then all of a sudden, when it comes to Thanksgiving, it's like you have those same things, but for some reason, it's all special. And, grandma and grandpa
And
come over and you
stressful. Yeah.
stressful. Yeah, you're in. Yeah, exactly. And there's all these emotions that come along with it. But when it comes down to it, like the contents of the meal are just another turkey dinner that you could eat any day of the week. And so we tell that to athletes, like, yeah, it's a championship game. Let's call it what it is. But when it comes down to it, it's just volleyball. You do this every single day. Like you've trained, trust your training, you've earned the right to be here. Like it's just another turkey dinner. And
Yeah.
so my athletes are giving feedback that like that, that
They
helps
like
to
the
just kind of in
analogy.
those
Well,
moments.
yeah, the
Yeah.
ball's the same size, the court's the same size, the net's the same height. Like,
Hmm.
oh, you create something that makes it look smaller or makes your opponent look taller or whatever. Like that's internal. I love that. I think it's a great analogy. That it's just a it's just a game, right? It's just a game.
Yeah.
It's the same game, same length, same everything. Only
Hmm.
you can add to it, right? So
Yeah.
add
Yeah.
negative stuff. I
And
like the idea of verbalizing fears, if we want to
mhm.
call them that, so that you can then kind of get rid of them, right?
Yeah.
Verbalizing the bad what ifs and then focus on the good what ifs.
Yeah, it's so helpful because like both are probable to happen. Like
Hmm.
we might lose this, we might win it, but it like really were you shifting your focus. And sometimes like when athletes like get some of these fears out, like it does uncover some of these deeper things, like kind of connecting back to parents, like not wanting to let parents down and the pressure. And so we actually loop parents into the postseason. There's some activities that like I rotate through, and this kind of crosses over into like mental training, but also more like culture. I share with parents not what their kids' fears are, but I have them write letters to them as they head into the postseason. And we like have a specific like activity where they read them by themselves. But basically, the intent is for parents to communicate how much they love their kids. And, I tell parents like, you probably like say it all the time, or maybe you don't, but you think it, but like just getting out on paper that you love them regardless of how they play, regardless of how they perform, that you're proud of them, like all of these things that you maybe don't get out as much as you want to. And so they write these letters to the kids, and we have like, this kind of special ceremony where they read them, and just for the hope of like, that is one of the kids' biggest fears.
Yeah.
And parents are like, I never put that pressure on them. But they're like, well, they're feeling it. And there's a lot that goes into why that might happen as well, where they're placing their praise and emphasis. But it's just a good opportunity also for like that parent athlete relationship as we head into postseason too.
So good. I mean, Jerry and I do an exercise with teams where we'll just do it via text, and we'll before we start a workshop or something with a team, we'll say, "All right, you're going to text someone who has been meaningful to you. It could be a
Oh,
parent, a
yeah.
brother, a sister, an old coach, whatever. And you just have to start it with, I know I don't say this enough, but blah blah blah." And then it's a
Mhm.
little gratitude exercise, right? And we have them shut off their phones, and then 2 hours later or whatever, when we're finishing up, "Hey, turn back on your phones. Did anyone get a response?" Right? And with the college kids, there's always one kid who goes, "Yeah, I got a response. My mom said, 'Are you drunk?'" Right? And
Yeah.
you know, but just when people are shocked by that expression of gratitude, what does that tell you? It tells you that you don't do it enough. Right?
Right.
And so it's a great exercise that I try to do for my children and friends and things like that. And I think what you do, this letter from parents to kids right before the postseason, I mean, I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
I love you unconditionally no matter what happens here,
Right.
because kids can create this narrative that my parents only love me when we win. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
and I don't think
exactly.
many parents think that.
No, they're like, that's the furthest thing from the truth,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Bree, this has been awesome. Any final points or things you want to leave our coaches with? And then I want you to sort of give some links and social, and we'll put them all in the show notes as well. But how people can follow your work, connect with the courses and everything that you're doing, and then of course this new stuff that you're doing.
yeah, of course. Well, I'd say final points. I think it's tough being a coach, but we wouldn't be doing it if we weren't passionate about it, and that there's that little spark inside of you that loves connecting with kids and seeing them grow. So when we talk about like all of these other things, these culture things, mindset, leadership, all of this, I mean, it really is what lights me up, but it also is what's kept me in coaching because I don't think I would still be in it if I didn't like actually develop or invest in finding out what resources are out there to
Mhm.
help make it easier for me as a coach because you're not taught it. So like also don't feel bad if you don't know any of this stuff because
Mhm.
like I said, when I became a coach when I was like 21, 22, I'm like, who hired I mean, somebody
Yeah.
who saw potential in me for sure,
Yeah.
but I like, they don't give you this stuff. So
Yeah.
like, stay in it, take heart. Like, yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
worth it.
That's brilliant. All right. Tell people how they can connect with you.
Yeah, well, so for coaches, all of our coach information is at Coach Her Game. So you can go to our Instagram at Coach Her Game, and there you will find kind of our links, our resources. We have a plug and play program for high school coaches where you can train the mental game in as little as 30 minutes a week or less. So it's all the same things that I do in my program, but it's in a plug and play format. So you get your team together, play the videos, short little discussion afterwards, and you're off. So that's where you can find all that. If you're a parent, I'm at Elite Competitor Coach on Instagram. So those two are linked together. So if you find one, you're going to find the other. But that's where we have all of our parent trainings and resources and our individual program for athletes.
Perfect. Awesome. We'll put those in the show notes and everything, and get that out to people. But Bree, this was a great talk. I mean, I got a page of notes here, and I not writing quick enough to keep up, but some really, really great actionable takeaways, which are always my favorite podcasts of like, oh yeah, I could listen to this and do this tonight in practice, and it would make a difference. So thank you so much for being on the Way of Champions. Thank you for all the amazing work that you do, and best of luck with the new coach programs, because they're certainly needed. So congratulations.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on.